In 1991, the biggest child star on the planet picked up the phone. On the other end, the most famous entertainer in human history. Macaulay Culkin was fresh off Home Alone's record-breaking success, and Michael Jackson wanted to be his friend. But this wasn't just another celebrity friendship. What happened between these two would become one of the most misunderstood relationships in entertainment history. And now, decades later, Macaulay is finally ready to tell the truth about what really went on behind closed doors at Neverland Ranch. What he's revealing will change everything you thought you knew about Michael Jackson. Here's what nobody talks about. Macaulay Culkin didn't meet Michael Jackson at some industry party or award show. He met him because they were living parallel lives that almost nobody could understand. Think about it. In 1990, Macaulay was 9 years old and had just become the most recognizable child face in the world. Home Alone made $400 million. He couldn't go outside. He couldn't have normal friendships. Every adult around him wanted something. Michael Jackson had been living that exact reality since he was 5 years old with the Jackson 5. By 1991, Michael had spent 30 years unable to trust anyone, unable to go anywhere without being mobbed, unable to know if people loved him or loved his fame. They were two people trapped in the same golden cage. And Michael saw himself in that little kid from Home Alone. But here's where the story gets interesting. The way they actually connected wasn't what you'd expect. Michael didn't invite Macaulay to Neverland for some extravagant party. He invited him to do the most normal thing imaginable: play video games. And this is where everything the media got wrong starts to make sense. See, Neverland Ranch wasn't built because Michael was trying to recreate his childhood or because he had some sinister plan. According to Macaulay, Neverland was built because Michael Jackson literally couldn't leave his house without causing chaos. He couldn't go to an arcade. He couldn't go to an amusement park. He couldn't walk into a toy store. So he built all of those things at home. And for the first time, Macaulay met someone who actually understood what his life had become. Let's back up and talk about who Macaulay Culkin really was in 1991. He wasn't just a cute kid who got lucky with one movie. By age 11, he'd already filmed Home Alone, Home Alone 2, My Girl, and The Good Son. He was making millions. His face was on every magazine cover. And behind the scenes, his father was controlling every aspect of his career with an iron fist. Kit Culkin, Macaulay's father, was notoriously difficult. He managed Macaulay's career like a business asset, not a son. He was known in Hollywood for being aggressive, demanding, and overprotective to the point of suffocation. Macaulay later described his father as someone who saw him as a money machine. Sound familiar? Because Joseph Jackson did the exact same thing to Michael. This is crucial to understanding why their friendship worked. Michael had lived through an abusive stage father who beat him, controlled him, and exploited his talent for profit. When Michael looked at Macaulay, he didn't just see a famous kid. He saw himself at that age, trapped in the same nightmare. And here's what Macaulay has said in recent interviews that most people missed. Michael Jackson was one of the only adults in his life who treated him like a normal kid. Not a commodity, not a cash machine, just a kid. So what actually happened when Macaulay visited Neverland? According to Macaulay himself, in multiple interviews over the years, they did what you'd expect kids to do. They played video games, watched movies, ate junk food, and ran around the property. Michael had every video game system imaginable. He had a movie theater. He had an arcade. But here's the part that always gets left out of the sensational stories. Michael's staff was everywhere. Security, housekeepers, Neverland employees. This wasn't some isolated compound where strange things happened in secret. It was a fully staffed estate with dozens of people coming and going constantly. Macaulay has been asked about this friendship hundreds of times over the past 30 years. Reporters have tried to get him to say something scandalous. Documentaries have tried to paint him as a victim. And every single time, his answer has been consistent. Nothing inappropriate ever happened. In a 2020 interview, Macaulay said something really important. He said, "I'm going to begin with the line, it's not a line, it's the truth. He never did anything to me. I never saw him do anything." And then he said something even more revealing. "And especially at this flashpoint in time, I'd have no reason to hold anything back. The guy has passed on. If anything, I'd feel like I had a responsibility to speak up if something had happened." And I don't have that responsibility because nothing happened. Think about what he's saying there. This is a man in his 40s with nothing to gain and nothing to lose. He's not being paid by the Jackson estate. He's not trying to protect anyone's reputation. He's simply telling the truth as he lived it. But here's where we need to talk about why this friendship became so controversial in the first place. Michael Jackson was different, not in a dangerous way, in a misunderstood way. He spoke in a soft voice. He was gentle. He was childlike in his enthusiasm for simple things like cartoons and amusement park rides. And in our culture, when a grown man displays those qualities, people get uncomfortable. They start asking questions. They start assuming the worst. But Macaulay saw something everyone else missed. Michael wasn't trying to be a child. He was trying to experience the childhood that had been stolen from him. From age 5, Michael Jackson was performing in clubs until 3 a.m. He watched his brothers with groupies. He was beaten by his father during rehearsals. He never went to a real school. He never had a birthday party with normal kids. He never played Little League. He never did any of the things that make childhood actually childhood. So when Michael built Neverland, when he invited kids over to play, when he watched cartoons and ate candy, he wasn't being predatory. He was trying to heal something that had been broken in him since 1963. And Macaulay understood this because he was living through his own version of it. His childhood was being stolen in real time by the demands of Hollywood and his controlling father. Here's something most people don't know. Macaulay Culkin is the godfather to Michael Jackson's children. Think about what that means. After everything, after all the accusations, after the media circus, after Michael's death, Michael trusted Macaulay enough to name him godfather to Prince, Paris, and Blanket. That's not something you do with an acquaintance. That's not something you do with someone who is just another celebrity friend. That's something you do with someone you trust completely, with the most important people in your life. In interviews after Michael's death, Macaulay has talked about how much Michael loved his children, how protective he was, how he tried to give them the normal childhood he never had, while also shielding them from the insanity of fame. And here's what breaks my heart about this story. Michael succeeded. Prince, Paris, and Blanket all turned out to be well-adjusted, thoughtful, grounded people. Despite growing up with the last name Jackson, despite losing their father at a young age, despite the media circus, they turned out okay. Because Michael, for all his eccentricities and all his trauma, was a good father. And Macaulay saw that up close. When the Leaving Neverland documentary came out in 2019, making new accusations against Michael Jackson, Macaulay could have stayed silent. He could have avoided the controversy. He could have protected his own reputation by distancing himself from the Jackson name. Instead, he spoke up. Again, he went on podcasts, gave interviews, and made it clear his experience was real and his experience mattered. He wasn't saying other people were lying. He was saying his truth deserved to be heard too. And this is important. Macaulay Culkin is not naive. He's not some innocent child anymore who doesn't understand the world. He's dealt with addiction, family trauma, the death of friends, and the brutal realities of childhood fame. He knows what abuse looks like. He knows what manipulation feels like. And he's telling you, from his own lived experience, that Michael Jackson was not that person to him. Now, does that mean every accusation against Michael is false? That's not for me or Macaulay to decide. But what it does mean is that the story is more complicated than a simple villain narrative. Michael Jackson was a deeply damaged person who found connection with other people living through similar trauma. And sometimes, just sometimes, those connections were exactly what they appeared to be: friendship. Here's what this story is really about: the cost of fame on children. Both Michael and Macaulay paid devastating prices for their childhood stardom. Michael developed insomnia, body dysmorphia, addiction to painkillers, and a complete inability to trust people. He died at 50, rehearsing for another comeback tour because he was hundreds of millions in debt. Macaulay walked away from acting at 14 because he couldn't take it anymore. He's talked openly about how his father's exploitation destroyed their relationship permanently. He struggled with addiction. He lost his sister to addiction. He spent years trying to figure out who he was when he wasn't Kevin McAllister. The tragedy isn't that two famous people became friends. The tragedy is that two children had their childhood stolen, and when they tried to reclaim some piece of it together, the world turned it into something ugly. In a recent interview, Macaulay said something that stuck with me. He said, "At the end of the day, we were just two people who understood each other. And that's rare in this business." He's also said that some of his happiest memories from childhood are at Neverland. Not at movie premieres, not at award shows, not on film sets, but playing video games with Michael Jackson in a ranch in California, being two people who didn't have to perform for each other. And maybe that's the real Untold story. Not scandal, not controversy, but two people who found genuine friendship in the middle of extraordinary circumstances. Michael Jackson died in 2009. At his memorial, Macaulay was one of the few celebrities in attendance. He was photographed crying. He later said losing Michael felt like losing a family member, because that's what they were to each other. Not celebrity friends, not whatever twisted narrative the media tried to create. They were family. So what's the truth about Home Alone star Macaulay Culkin and Michael Jackson? The truth is complicated. The truth is that Michael Jackson was a deeply troubled person with immense trauma who also happened to be capable of genuine friendship and love. The truth is that not everything in this world is black and white. The truth is that Macaulay Culkin, who has every reason to tell a different story, has spent 30 years consistently defending a friendship that meant something real to him. And maybe, just maybe, the truth is that we as a culture need to be more careful about the narratives we create around famous people, because behind every headline is a human being. Behind every accusation is a real person's life. And behind every friendship is a story more complicated than we'll ever fully understand. Macaulay Culkin's untold story about Michael Jackson isn't the story the media wanted. It's not scandalous. It's not shocking. It's not gonna fit neatly into a documentary narrative. It's just two kids who found each other in the chaos of fame and held on tight. If this story gave you a different perspective on Michael Jackson and Macaulay Culkin's friendship, make sure to subscribe to King of Pop and hit that notification bell. We're bringing you more untold stories about the King of Pop that go beyond the headlines. Stay tuned for more content, because the truth is always more interesting than the tabloids.